Let's go.
Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. We're doing a podcast here today. I'm Psy as usual, and we're here with Guilty and Snupy. So Guilty is a feral druid theory crafter and just kind of like very solid, very consistent, high-ranking feral druid player. Been playing it for too long now, and Snupy, of course, the PvP god as we know him, but we're going to get a chance to speak to him a little bit more. But this episode today is just going to be talking about feral druid, how it's been performing so far in Dragonflight, and then what we can anticipate with 10.0.5, and you know how that's going to be looking with quite a few dramatic changes that are going to be coming for us in the patch. So yeah, starting things off, guys. Guilty, how you doing? And yeah, how you feeling about feral so far?
Yeah, expansion's been fun so far. Obviously, I'm sure we'll get to it in a little bit, but there's been some problems. But feral feels pretty strong in M+. I've been grinding out the PvP. We were just talking about that, so I'm enjoying that. Yeah, expansion's been dope so far. It's been the best expansion in a really long time. I'm pogging.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And Snoopy, what about you, brother?
Yeah, I mean, I think Dragonflight so far overall, for any spec really, has been just like a good experience. And for Feral specifically, I think it's been a lot of fun. Compared to like Shadowlands, we have Draft. I think Draft being gone is like for me the biggest difference, like the most fun, because before we were stuck to one target. Now in PP you can kind of just be free to cleave, and we can kind of get into this more too, but that the cleave build is what is by far like the strongest part of Feral now in PP, and every single hybrid of Feral is cleaving most games, and that's just like a very, very stark difference to how it was before. So it's been refreshing for Feral to actually be able to cleave, and yeah, it's really fun and good.
Yeah,
even though there are some things that I would change about it, but yeah.
For sure, yeah, and I'm sure we'll get into that. But that was Draft of Deep Focus, obviously, for... I'm assuming you're talking about that. Yeah, for anyone who's unsure what he means by Draft there, it's not a new PvP mode, but we will talk about the new PvP mode that we do have in Dragonflight, I'm sure, eventually.
Yep.
So, yeah, the way things are going to kind of go for everyone watching is we're going to talk a little bit about Dragonflight and how it's been, Feral Druid and how it's been performing so far in Raid, Mythic Plus, PvP, all that sort of stuff, and then we'll be talking about 10.0.5. So, yeah, I mean, you know, we can kind of talk amongst ourselves, guys, and feel free to just jump in on each other, but how have you been finding Dragonflight? I know, Guilty, you said that it's the best expansion that you've experienced for a long time. Why are you feeling that way? And I think generally in the community, everyone feels very positive. Of course, like anything in life, there are problems with this expansion, but it's still moving in the right direction, would you say?
Yeah, oh, for sure. Like, they're definitely moving in the right direction. And we'll talk about it a bit later, but like, seeing the 10.0.5 changes, where they're like adding new features and they're doing big class tuning, is like really positive for like my view on the expansion going forwards, because I think a lot of expansions in the past have had like an okay start and then they kind of just got a little bit abandoned, whereas it seems obvious that they aren't doing that this time. We're getting solid changes coming through, and yeah, I'm enjoying the hell out of the expansion. I just love that there's nothing that I feel like I have to do. Everything that I'm doing because I want to do, because like pushing keys, I'm doing like 22s with buddies, with friends. That's fun as hell. I'm grinding solo shuffle because I don't have anything else that I need to do, so I can just like sit down and grind solo shuffle for an hour or whatever. I'm still doing world quests and shit. I'm doing world PvP with random friends from fucking Mists of Pandaria who reach out and go, "Do you want a world PvP?" And I'm like, I don't have to do anything, so yeah, sure, might as well go and do that. There's like, it's just very freeing, the expansion so far. I don't feel forced to do anything, which is sick.
Yeah, for sure.
Can I expand on that a bit too? Because like that's exactly it as well for like a PP perspective as well, where actually Asmongold like said this, where it was before they kind of like force you down like a certain slide on a playground that's like there's like razor blades at the bottom. They kind of push you down like one slide and you had to go down it, you know, because you know, whatever, if it was artifacts or Tor gas, you know, whatever system it was, right? But all that is gone now, and now it's just like a playground, and they just say, go play, you know, have fun. You're not forced down any certain path, and that just makes like doing whatever you want to do way more fun when we're not forced down a certain path. And I think PvPers especially, because PvPers are like very, very lazy when it comes to anything that's not just PvPing. So that's probably like one of the best parts of Dragonflight, or for me, the best part is that you can just like ding 70, do BGs for like 2 hours. You have full honor gear, and then you're kind of competitive. You know, you can queue shuffle. There's no like I actually dinged my evoker, my warrior recently, and when I hit 70, I kept like having this like fear that I forgot to do something, but there was like nothing to do. You can just play arena, do whatever. But I kept like questioning myself, like, do I gotta do some kind of grind here? But you know, if it feels very freeing and good, and yeah, just like you have the tools to have fun, and then just go have fun. And I think that has been the most positive part.
The other awesome thing is like not feeling stuck to a spec. Like I played like 100 games of Resto Druid or whatever because like I was grinding legend wins and I wanted to play some Resto, and like it wasn't like I booted up and like my artifact was behind or I didn't have the Resto Druid legendaries. I just booted up, equipped gear, and then I was just a Resto Druid. I could just like play that for an hour.
Yeah, and then you can never touch it again for like 3 months if you want to, and you haven't invested into it. You haven't not been able to play it effectively. It's like you can just pick it up and drop it, and you haven't invested or lost anything as a result of that. Whereas like, you have to go and sink a few 100,000 gold into a legendary and farm Torghast in like Shadowlands, and then like just to play for an hour. And it's like I've done like 3 or 4 days worth of work to just play Resto for an hour. So
and then that was something you couldn't put into your main spec as well. So like by playing something else, you like cost your main spec something. It's the theme of the expansion so far is just freedom. Like I can do whatever I want. And like that's so good to me. That's what this game is fucking about.
I will say though, like Snoopy, you gave that analogy, I guess, from like Asmongold, I think you said, and you said it's like Blizzard would send you down a slide, and at the bottom there would be razor blades. But I disagree. It was actually the opposite. It was the whole slide was razor blades, and the end was like a cookie. And it was like, it was pain and agony getting all the way down there, and then you'd finally finish it, and it was like, okay, now I get this cookie. Whereas I wouldn't have minded a slide, you know, a nice enjoyable ride for a few weeks before I get that cookie or get that reward. But yeah, I absolutely agree. I think that's something that, I mean, we've all kind of touched on it, but I think as well, a big thing for me has just been how consistent, or like how good it seems the class balancing is getting. It seems like they're a lot more invested in it, and we're seeing these regular tunings, but the amount of dungeons I'm doing this expansion in Mythic Plus, obviously I'm specifically talking about this right now. I don't know how it is in PvP and raiding as much, but I'm doing Mythic Plus, and the amount of dungeons where me and the other 2 DPS players are on the exact same amount of damage. Like we're all doing 90k, or we're all doing like 107k, or whatever it is, and it's like radically different specs every time. Like it's like equalizing damage with a Shadow Priest, and then an Enhance, and then a Rogue, and then like an Outlaw Rogue, and a like a DH, and it's like whatever spec I play, it just seems like everything's clumped in a reasonably similar area. And so it just feels like everything's just so much more enjoyable, just being able to pick up and play. And there's definitely like some issues, things like I think they could do a bit more when it comes to like balancing some of the dungeons and that kind of stuff, but it has been over, of course, the holiday period. So I know like over December it's going to be awkward for them to be quick at nerfing and buffing bosses in Raid and doing stuff in Mythic Plus. And there was obviously the solo shuffle queue. I know people were waiting for like 3+ hours in queue, and then it was like a issue. Has that been fixed now? Is that better?
Depends when you're queuing and what rating you are. Like I got benched in Raid last week, so like during the Raid I was watching our Raiders stream and decided to queue some shuffle while I was doing that, and I sat in queue for 4 hours. So it still does happen occasionally, but it was kind of a dodgy time. Today, like I had like 10-minute queues, which is way chiller.
Yeah, there you go.
It could still be better, but
yeah, okay, cool.
I can also like kind of touch on that a bit, because like shuffle has, there was like multiple issues they had to address. Like one issue was like levers, because people just leave and they wouldn't lose MR, like matchmaking rating. So people, there would be like a benefit to leaving, but now they've kind of punished levers way harder. But like I'd say the biggest problem now is like healers, is like a lack of healers queuing. So if you're queuing at a time where there's like lack of healers, then you might get like 2, 3, even 4-hour queues in high MR. But if you queue when the healers are queuing, then you might get a very short queue. So, and they also like touched on this in their post. They like said that they will be addressing like healer incentives, which should be great, because I mean that has been that's been like the biggest issue for like queue times. But yeah, I mean they have been really like I feel like the feedback loop in general between like the community and Blizzard has been way better. They have been doing pretty frequent like feedback with good communication, and I think Shuffle's like a very good system that has a lot of potential. Because I also kind of wanted to talk about this, like when it comes to bottlenecks for PvP, like the whole gearing and like getting ready to queue, and then like just having the biz stuff, right? There's no more systems. You get full gear instantly. That's good. That bottleneck is kind of gone now, and then LFG is a different bottleneck that's kind of gone now as well. So if they can kind of get those queue times down, to where it's like more feasible to someone to kind of come up from work and queue without having to wait 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Then I think it's like, I mean, that's the future, like someone just coming in from school or work and like queuing for an hour and is getting right in the game. Like that is kind of where it has to be. And I think, Soul Shuffle, like, I mean, it's the future, right? It's the future.
I think, like, Psy will be familiar with this issue because I've heard him complain about it before. But LFG was such a massive bottleneck for PvP. Because I swear there were so many players who were actually like good players who could get Gladiator Plus, who just never would, because in order to do that they had to like get an achievement for people to invite them. So they had to like grind out games with players who are worse than them and get marginal gains. And it just made it such a slog for people to actually engage in PvP. And Solo Shuffle is such a massive buff to that, because you can just queue up and then play.
Yeah, I think as somebody who is, because I know both of you guys really enjoy your PvP, and I'm somebody who I don't dislike PvP. I just know it's so difficult that I'm like, I'll stick to my preset gameplay where I know that boss is going to do the same 3 mechanics every time. But I do really like the idea of PvP being in a healthy state, because it complements the whole game. If one area is healthy, it encourages the other areas to be healthy as well. And so seeing Solo Shuffle coming in, I'm just so stoked for PvPers, because it just makes it seem like they're getting stuff and they're not just being left behind each expansion. Because realistically, every patch we're going to get 4+ new dungeons. We're going to get 8 new dungeons. We're going to get a whole new raid and all the stuff that comes with raiding and all the various, like, I don't know, just luxuries that do come with raiding content. We get a zone based around the raid and everything, and all that kind of stuff that goes into it, the tier sets and everything that goes into raiding. And then it's like, oh, Warsong Gulch again. And it's like, it's as much as I love that BG, it's cool to see that there's investment going into PvP. So I'm glad. I think you're right. Like, I think Solo Shuffle could really be the future. And actually, one more quick question about PvP generally speaking before we do get more focused on Feral. Is Solo Shuffle, like, is that gonna be a WoW tournament thing? Like, could you see people signing up and kind of getting...
They did one.
Have they done one?
Yeah.
They did a Solo Shuffle tournament.
How did it go? Was it, like, well received?
I think it was decently well received. I don't think it's going to replace the general WoW tournament style, but I wouldn't be surprised. Like, think of it like how MDI is MDI, right? But there's also the Great Push.
Yeah.
Like, I can very well see it like existing alongside. I don't think it's going to replace it. But
fair enough.
Yeah, it was fun to watch. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we can talk a little bit more about Feral specifically now, and that was a nice little kind of recap of how we're feeling about Dragonflight so far. But Feral so far up until this point, we've got 10.0.5 releasing. It's Friday today, the 20th of January. It's releasing on the 24th, 25th, depending on where you are in the world. So it's coming very, very soon, and we will get into the changes that are coming, but how have you guys been feeling about Feral up until this point? Because I feel like some of the stigma is starting to slowly be washed away from Feral. We got people on Twitter calling for Feral to get nerfed during the beta leading up to Dragonflight, saying Feral's way too strong in Mythic Plus and I guess like PvE. And then also nowadays people are calling for Feral to get nerfed in PvP currently in Dragonflight. So where are we at? And what do you guys think about the design and the talents and all that kind of stuff? I'll come to you first, Snupy.
Yeah. So where we're at right now, I think Feral is very, very strong. I think it's not as strong as some people think it is or say it is. Like one thing, this actually happened to me as well. So I'm not gonna. Okay, you know Super Tease.
Yeah.
I played him on the beta actually, and I was like cleaving. I think it was on Holy DK, and I think 70% of my damage was on pets, right? Just cleaving pets, which pet damage like you can't really count that because like when you look at the actual leaderboard after arena, it's just player damage. But I think this is like what has happened to a pretty big degree. Even though Feral is really strong, is that people will look at details, and a Feral might be cleaving like a demo lock or just like a ton of pets in general, and you might like take a screenshot of like Feral doing 100k DPS, and then it's like yo, and they actually tweeted me like Ferals or whatever, but then when the round actually ends, the DK is doing more damage to me on players, the DH is doing more damage to players. And I'm like right with them, but so I think this has caused people to think it's a bit better than it actually is, even though it is very, very strong as a top spec. But some people make it seem that it's like just, you know, like S plus tier, and that it's just like crushed. That you should never lose. I actually saw a friend of mine. He posted on being it like you should never lose as a Feral. I'm like okay, so I think Feral is really good, and this is the cleave build, like the I guess it's fairly similar to the PvE build, which why, but like Sai, I think
it's literally just the M plus build.
Yeah, like Sai, you would go 2-4 easily, like especially like shuffle's quite inflated as well. Sai, you should go do some shuffle.
Bro, I really want to.
You should.
I've been doing Mythic Plus, and right now I'm sad at like rank 2 Feral, like 3.1k IO, and I'm just like I just want to ride this train right now because everything's going well. But as soon as things start to like settle, I very much plan to get into solo shuffle and slam that because it looks so fun.
Yeah, like Snoopy's saying, like I've got my details open from the last round I played, which was against BM Hunter Unholy DK, and I'm doing like 80k DPS. But if you open it up, it's literally 50%. A whole 50% of it is to pets, more than 50%. 27% to the actual DK, 21% to the Hunter, and then 1% to a Resto Druid, and the rest is all just like pets. So
and that
like it would be insane regardless, but the majority of it, like when it looks insane, is not actually that insane.
Yeah.
Like it's still a lot of damage, and I guess like one big part is because of Apex Predator's Craving, which is actually like one of my favorite parts about the design of Feral as well, is that cleaving and like bleeding many targets proxy bites, and these bites will feed your bleeds because Sabertooth and also the Foresight as well, you know, makes your bleeds do more damage. So I quite like that. So cleaving pets, like it's not like useless damage, but I do think like the community perception is quite like wrong because people do think like details is like actual player damage for some reason. I
think what happens is there's an incentive for your spec to be considered like better than it is, or like really good. There's an incentive for it to be meta because most people that are talking on Twitter or on Twitch or anything like that, they are content creators. They are people who make money from their thing being good, right? The better their spec is, the more people come in to watch them be good at their spec. So there is an incentive for that. So I think sometimes people can be a little bit kind of coy with like, oh, this spec is really good, go look at that one, go nerf that thing, because it's like there's an incentive to in a way want to do that, or to be a little bit kind of do a disservice and be like, oh, look at the damage on Feral, and it's like meanwhile most of it is actually pet damage. So I think there's probably like a little bit of that going on in the community.
I do want to like not pull a Tony Feral as well.
Sure.
But I do think Feral is like top 5, top 6.
Oh, yeah.
At least.
It's really good. It is really good. It's like,
but
I guess
it can probably catch some nerfs and be fine.
Usually the truth is like somewhere in the middle of like both extremes, you know?
Agreed.
Like maybe a Tony say no burst, and like, but I mean you kind of need that as well. I think Tony's a good voice, you know. Tony, the Feral, the Dragonflight Feral, like I think it's also good that we have that, to kind of pull the other direction a bit.
And as much as Soufrey is a little bit psychotic with his asking for drought back, I don't want drought back. Please, good God, don't give us drought back. I also think that his points about how like the problem is that the only way you can play Feral in PvP at the moment is really the cleave build is a valid complaint. But yeah.
Actually, So I actually I can just like talk about the game. I played a shuffle game. Like I played almost no shuffle games on main because of queues, but I played one like 2 days ago, and it was like Thesha. It was Avidance. It was like a matchup where I couldn't really cleave. So I actually went to single target build, and I went like 3 rounds on like very high MR, and it kind of felt decent. So I actually think the single target build is a decent option, but it definitely is kind of lacking, and they are kind of addressing this a bit at least next patch with the taste changes and I guess also Lunar's getting buffed a bit. But yeah, I think it's a very valid thing that like because you are kind of forced into like this certain cleave playstyle, especially in like shuffle, and I do think hopefully single target will become a bit better. But it's nice to at least have a build that can compete at that level, and that's the most important part.
Oh, for sure. Like it is fun to play. Which is the most important part, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think as well, like even just kind of alluding to, I think we've been suffering so far in Raid. I think that's actually been weirdly, like ironically, where we've been suffering the most is in Raid right now, which is quite strange to me because that's traditionally where we performed at our best. And also, it's weird that we've gained, because for the longest time Feral's been like really good at single target, and then as soon as you add anything else like burst cleave or anything like that, we kind of just fall apart and we crumble and everybody else just overtakes us. But right now we're designed in a way where we can get a pure single target build, and then you can just put like 1 point in Primal Wrath and you can have access to decent AoE but not having to fully invest in it and stuff like that. So we've had other avenues open up for us. We can play any style of fight now, and we can build a build around it, but we are not exactly performing at the highest kind of level when you look at Warcraft logs and you look at the stats that are coming through. So I feel like Raid is where we are struggling, because in Mythic Plus we are, okay, we're not like meta, but we are up in a very nice cozy spot. And I think there's some good reasons why we're not meta right now in Mythic Plus. But we are in a very, very cozy, comfortable spot. If it wasn't for Resto and Boomkin being as strong as they are, we would probably be that bit higher in Mythic Plus. So we're in a good spot there. I could even see some potential for us in MDI because of the mass pulls, consistent like AoE, which Feral does really well on. But in terms of Raid, we've kind of been struggling. I know, Snupy, maybe you haven't been raiding too much, but Guilty, have you got any kind of weigh-in on that?
So I think basically Feral flipped almost entirely from last season. Last season, Feral only did single targets and you like never hit AoE. And then this season, Feral is almost entirely an AoE spec. Single target is kind of not quite there. Traditionally, AoE isn't bad in Raid, right? Like you want single target, but having AoE to pattern adds, and this is a particularly AoE focused tier. However, a lot of the way that Feral's AoE happens is over time. Like it's rip ticking to you Apex procs, but it's casting multiple Primal Wraths in order to proc Terror and Wounds. And in M Plus and PvP, where you're playing the cleave build, you have lots of targets for a long period of time. Stuff doesn't like die instantly. So you get to take advantage. You get to take advantage of rip ticking, you get to take advantage of Apex procs. However, in PvP, however, in Raid, outside of a couple of fights like Primal Council and Kurog, which not so coincidentally are the best looking fights of Feral if you look at the stats, these targets don't really live long enough for you to cleave. Like AoE is aimed to like die instantly, like a Windwalker blows it up or whatever, a mage blows it up, and you don't really get to take advantage of Feral AoE. So you're just left with the Feral single target, which is not so hot. It's getting buffed next patch. And that's just kind of why it doesn't look so great, because the AoE doesn't fit the fight style for raids, but it does for other stuff.
I mean, I'm looking at these stats here though, but I swear Feral was like, maybe I'm just looking at the wrong stats, but I swear Feral was like way down here. What's just happened? Why are we up here?
Well, more people are clearing more fights where Feral looks okay, right? Like more people are killing Primal Council. There's less Teros waiting. It's also just that on Mythic, stuff does live a little bit longer, so you get to take advantage of that, particularly in progress.
Sure. Okay, yeah. I mean, if you go into heroic logs, that's where things kind of flip. Yeah.
Feral's pretty high on Kurog. Feral's really high on Primal Council. If you filter to Teros, Feral is
Yeah. Jump over to
not so
Kurog
great.
there. Where are we? Okay, so yeah, we're good on Kurog there. I mean, yeah, Teros, we got to be down towards the
about halfway up.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's decent. That's decent. But a lot of this is going to be kind of shifting. Is it like, well, I say shifting, but like we're going to be getting some additional kind of single target gains as 10.0.5 comes through, which we can kind of discuss more there. So it does seem like there's going to be some potential help for us in raid. We obviously don't know what I mean, if we look at the roadmap, we don't know what this 10.1 raid is going to look like. But traditionally, they like to cover a range of, a bit of single target, a bit of cleave, bit of, burst AoE, that kind of stuff. So we should be kind of well situated for that. But yeah, anything else to kind of talk about in terms of how we've been performing currently in the raid, Guilty?
I think we performed fine. Like we'll talk about the class tree later. I think the class tree is a big problem for both raid, PvP, and other stuff. I think single target is going to get better. It looks. I don't think I've given an exact number anywhere, but it's about 6% buff on single target, which is nice. That'll prop us up on some of these fights. Being forced to take Survival Instinct is a good thing. Current performance. I think like Razageth is actually a really good fight for Feral. I'm not in it, unfortunately, but I think most Ferals should be, because Feral has really good tools for that fight. If you take a look at like Chompy's logs, who's the Feral from Ethical, who are an Australian guild, he's been absolutely pumping. And his Razageth logs on progress were very impressive. I was looking at those quite a lot when trying to like persuade my guild leader to put me in.
Yeah.
Didn't work, unfortunately, but really impressive logs. And I think Feral's probably really good on that fight.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, like, have we kind of anything else you guys want to discuss in terms of how Feral has been currently performing? Like, I don't know, just anything at all, even just community perception. Are you noticing that there's a difference in attitude? Are you noticing, like, I don't know, anything at all?
All right, like, go ahead.
All right.
No, go ahead, brother.
I was gonna say, yeah, like I mentioned this before we went live too, or before we started recording, that like this is the first time we had this like podcast, this talk a few times now. This is the first time where I feel like people are like kind of out for like Feral Nerfs, So it's like a different dynamic, at least from a PvE perspective, but also from PvE probably as well. I feel like in PvE people are like less I don't know if the word is tribal about it, maybe like where they like want to. You're not getting bursted down by a Feral or like cleaved down by a Feral yourself. It's the mobs. So like it's an interesting change in dynamic that I think it's it's cool to be. I mean, I'd rather have that than being like begging for buffs. So
yeah.
You've not heard me talk about boomkins if you think that PvE is untribal.
yeah.
I've seen some stuff. My guilty can go there.
I was just going to say that, like, even if single target isn't particularly strong, it's one of the most enjoyable single target rotations that Feral's had in the last couple of expansions. Like, obviously, we were just Sabertooth jailed for a while, but it's more enjoyable to me than the latter half of Legion. Like, the start of Legion is probably the last time I enjoyed Feral single target this much. So even though it's not great, it's fun as hell, which is good.
Can I actually say one thing about Sabertooth? I just want to like highlight this. Like so far, like one of my favorite things about Feral Druid so far in Dragonflight has been like Sabertooth going away from just extending rip by like it was like not a lot in Shadowlands, and BFA was a lot. I remember in BFA you would do a 1 combo point rip and then just frenzy 5 combo it was a full rip. I really like how it's functioning now, where your bites just buff your bleed damage, which actually feels really good, especially in cleave as well when you get the bite procs. It like the synergy between bites and bleeds I think is way better now, which I think is like very important, because that's kind of what you're doing. You're biting and bleeding, and I just want to highlight that like so far that's been one of the best changes I think to Feral's. That Sabertooth now buffs the rip damage instead of just extending it.
Yeah, yes. I think it's important for a bleed spec like Feral to remain a bleed spec, keep it a bleed spec, which it seems like they are doing. But I think it's important that that is the crux of what you're trying to attempt to do is management with your combo points, your energy, and then your bleeds and your periodic effects, and have those plates spinning. But a question for you guys, and I know Guilty, I think you wanted to talk about something else as well. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm thinking back. But do you guys think that Feral overall has become more complex, and dare I say too complex? Because I know that there's going to be a wide range of audiences watching this video that do maybe feel Feral is complex. Do you feel like we're in an okay spot? Do you think maybe people could just do with, like, I don't know, just putting in a bit more practice time and trying to learn the current age of Feral? Or do you think that, like, maybe we are a little bit overly complex?
I don't think we're overly complex.
Yeah, that's fine. I was just curious on opinions.
It's definitely I know that complexity is a concern that Blizzard have about Feral. I do not think, which is why Lion Strength, for example, exists. I don't think that. I think they're probably in a happy place. I'm having to tread carefully here. I think they're probably okay with the current level of complexity and how you can opt out of certain things.
I think that's the key. Yeah.
I think that's the core part, is that maybe they might think that Feral with all the tools is on the more complex end, but it's very easy to opt out of some of those options.
Yeah.
So I think it's in an okay place.
Sure. Yeah. What about you, Snupy? You kind of similar?
Yeah. So I guess from a PP perspective, like let's say the most popular cleave build, like you don't play Lunar Inspiration. You actually don't even play Adaptive Swarm, so like you don't have that many buttons to press. So there's like builds that are a bit more complex, but it's like Guilty mentioned, line strength BT is like I mean I feel like BT is probably like the most complex thing, at least from like a PP perspective, where you gotta keep the procs going, gotta track like what generators you pressed. But they have an option for line strength, which are also great. So it's like optional complexity you kind of add on, which I think is the best way to go about it, and the most fun way too, because you might be like, okay, now I got my base rotation down, and then you might try add BT, because I think BT like is slightly better on paper if you're like really good with the uptime. But actually, I made a guide recently, or like a quick guide for Shuffle, and I said,
oh yeah, where can people watch that guide, Snupy?
Oh, it's actually on my YouTube channel.
Oh yeah, what's that?
It's called like how I got 3K in Shuffle.
Okay.
And, like there's like a quick guide in the beginning.
Okay, and what's the name of your YouTube channel?
Oh, it's just Snupy. Just Snupy.
Oh, okay, I'm gonna search it right now. Yeah, keep talking.
We got there in the end.
But yeah, and in that little video, I actually mentioned that BT is probably like a bit better on paper, but line strength is a great option for new players, and in some situations it might even be better, because you might do like 1-2 on BT, then get stunned, and then you can't proc it, or 1-2 BT get fared. Like it can be frustrating to play BT, and it requires a lot more awareness, I guess, of like what could happen to you. So yeah, it's like optional complexity, which is good. So kind of what Guilty said.
Like I haven't played BT since 1800, because I just decided that my brain was too small to think about PvP and also think about proccing Blood Talons at the same time. So I just click on Lion Strength and I mindlessly press buttons and Primal Wrath.
Yeah,
that is fine.
I think something that
really good.
I'm very a lot more conscious of these days, and something that I speak to my chat about, is I say to people, like, what you're trying to achieve and what somebody else is trying to achieve might not necessarily be the same thing. So people come in and they go, oh, do I have to play Blood Talons? I really don't like it. I find I struggle with it. Is Lion Strength viable? And I love that word, viable. And it's like, yeah, of course it is. You might lose a couple of % on your overall damage, but like in the grand scheme, you're going to enjoy it more. You're going to make fewer mistakes with like standing in stuff and yada yada yada, because, or like overcapping combo points because you're trying to get your Blood Talons and you get a bit scrambled. Like, you're gonna play better, so you're gonna have a better time. So yeah, play that thing. Like, that's fine. You don't have to play I don't know, what's another talent that might trick people? You don't have to play Unbridled. In fact, it's not even necessarily a better option. It's just something that like is maybe fun for some people to play that. And there are various selections, I think, for Feral Druid that you can take. Do you want Convoke or Incon? Like, for example, Convoke, I think, is way better in lower level dungeons where things are dying very, very quickly. Whereas Incon's better when you get to a higher level. So what like a pro player, like a high level player in PvP or Raid or Mythic Plus, what they might be doing, they're trying to optimize for themselves. They're not trying to optimize for you and where you're at. And this is what I try and tell people. If you're in a different area, like if you're in a normal raid and you're trying to progress like Kurog on normal, what is BIS in that situation, or what's really good for you, might be different from what's best BIS on like Mythic Kurog for Chompy, or, you know, like a very good Feral Druid player, right? So it's good to keep that in mind. And I think when people approach the game that way, then you can look at Feral Druid with all the different talent options and be very happy with that opt-in, opt-out of complexity. And I like you say, I think Blizzard's done a very good job of saying, like, right, do you want Raging Fury or Tiger's Tenacity, or Lion Strength or Blood Talons, Convoke or Incon, and like all these various Vein Ripper or Rip and Tear. I think it's important to have the complexity and to allow people to opt out of it, because if you just remove complexity and say you don't get a choice, you are just going to play a simple build, I think that kills a lot of interest for a lot of people. And I think particularly Feral Druid seem to like that higher kind of like APM playstyle and stuff, and managing things. So yeah, cool. Anything else you guys want to touch on there, or should we move on?
I can cover most of it.
Yeah, cool. Right. Well,
10.05.
Yeah, we can talk about 10.0.5. So as you can see, anyone who's watching, like, we've got the tree here, and this is quite different from the tree that you might have in the live game, and you know, what you're used to looking at, because there's been quite a few changes. For example, Lunar Inspiration on the spec tree being moved, Sudden Ambush and Taste for Blood being 1-point nodes now, MOC and Berserks and things moving, Tear Open Wound moving up to the top of the tree, etc., etc. Plus there have been some nerfs and buffs of various things. And then on the class tree as well, there's been quite a bit of movement. So I know we might spend a bit of time on this, guys, and we can break it down piece by piece. But anything that you guys, like, do you guys want to start with the class tree and talk a little bit about that, or should we focus a bit more on the spec tree? I think we'll focus on the spec tree, and then we can come back to the class tree. But yeah, Snupy, for you, like, are you excited about this change? Are you excited about the general buffs and nerfs of certain abilities, or how are you feeling about it?
I think, like, the changes in the Druid tree, no, sorry, in the Feral tree, I am, like, very happy about overall. I think one thing that they were going to do in 10.0.5 was, you know, putting Lunar and Frenzy on the same node. I'm very happy they strayed away from that. I think making Sudden Ambush and Taste of Blood like a 1-point node is great, especially in like a single target build, because even in my single target build for PvP, I was actually going with what was there with what was it called? Yeah, with Tear Open Wounds, even when I was going single target, just because it's like cheaper pathing. So it's great that Taste of Blood is now also just like a 1-point node. So it's like actually you actually have an option there, and they're equal in points spent. Same with Sudden Ambush and Rapid Ferocity. So I do think that's a great thing. The Lunar change is good too. I think they're buffing the damage. I actually have it right here. They're buffing Lunar damage by a bit, by 125% of the of the current value, which is nice. It's not gonna do like a ton of damage, but I think that is great as well. So like overall, there's more I can talk about here, but I can, you know, give it over to Guilty as well. But yeah,
sure.
The changes in the Feral tree, I'd say, are really good overall. The Druid tree, I'm more question mark with. But yeah, the Feral tree I'm happy with. I am.
Definitely got some question marks to the Druid tree.
Yeah.
The Feral tree's good though. Like I think Taste for Blood being a talent that was so bad that you took a talent that was a 0 DPS gain on single target in order to avoid taking 2 points in Taste for Blood was very obviously something that was bad, that shouldn't exist. So that being addressed is incredibly positive. Like I think the talent's fine, and I think there's still a couple of talents that you probably don't ever click on, but Relentless Predator being buffed to the point whereby like you can now click on it is also really good, because again that was a talent you just never clicked on. It cost you 2 points in Taste for Blood, which you didn't want, and then it just wasn't very good on its own. Whereas now it's quite good and you can talent towards it. I think Lunar Inspiration from a PvE perspective it needs more. None of the builds I've checked as like an option have had Lunar Inspiration in them, which isn't great. I think a huge problem with Lunar Inspiration though is design-wise, it's a lead that doesn't scale with mastery.
Yeah.
Which I think is fine. I don't think it should scale with mastery. But because it doesn't scale with mastery, it needs something to... It needs an alternate scale factor. I think it not scaling with mastery is good because it devalues Rake to me because it just becomes ranged Rake. At that point, just have it replace Rake. But I think, like, I suggested they should give it like 100% haste multiplier. So potentially, like, in this weird situation where your gear has loads of haste on it, Lunar Inspiration becomes good. If it has a load of mastery on it, Lunar Inspiration is less good. Which I think is more interesting than just making it scale with mastery.
I think that's good, but I feel like that's something where Blizzard would go, oh, this isn't, I guess, like, intrinsic to the player. It's going to cause confusion. Let's not do it. I feel like that's somewhere that they could err on the side of caution, or do you think perhaps not?
Well, I mean, to me, it's something like, I'm trying to think of it. There is an example, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. But certain abilities have a higher crit ratio. So, for instance, they do more crit damage. I don't see a reason why we can't have a talent that does more haste damage, essentially. Do you just put it in the tooltip? Like, you just say this scales extra with haste?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think for me, like, Lunar Inspiration specifically is an ability where it's not that I think it's bad. I think that it needs a fight that actually makes sense for it, right? Like, say you had was the fight in Legion, the Council, with just before where people got taste the lash. What was it? The sword?
Oh, Council of Shivara.
Council of Shivara. That kind of fight, I feel, is like, oh, hey, you could play Luna here because it's a bit of a ranged cleave, and that's where it can kind of slot in. But there's not really then like a raid design or a Mythic Plus design or really, I guess, a PvP design where that's necessary. So I feel like it's more so a case that they need to design a fight where those kinds of abilities can do well. I would like to... You disagree?
I just don't think you click. I think it's weak enough that you just don't click on it, even if like fight is perfect for it.
Fair
like,
enough.
Even on something like Kurog on 10.0.5, like 2-target cleave for the entire fight, I still don't think it's strong enough that you click on it instead of... Because realistically, like, if I take this 1 point off, this build, like, your options for it are in this M+ build that I posted, which is realistic what you'd play on like a 2-target cleave like Kurog. Like, your options are, you put it on Lunar Inspiration, you put it on Relentless Predator, 1 point in Carnivorous Instinct, Swarm, or Cat's Eye. You're not going to put it in Cat's Eye or Swarm, I think. You might put it in Carnivorous. But Relentless Predator is just stronger, I think, is the problem. Like, it just doesn't really have an ability to click on it, I think.
Yeah.
Like, maybe you could,
okay.
but I think you just need something.
Okay, so apart from Luna, generally speaking, you're happy with the tree? I mean, because at the end of the day, we're not going to get absolutely everything, and you're never going to, you know, if you had 1,000 years, like, yeah, sure, you could get this tree to be perfect, but generally speaking, you pretty happy with it?
Yeah, I mean, I sent in a bunch of feedback about the tree. And I said, like, I had a load of points about things that I thought could be better. And then at the end of my post, I said, look, I know that I've just listed like 10 things that I think could be better. But honestly, like, I'm happy with what this is. I think it could be better, but this is like an improvement over what we've got. And I'm satisfied with it. Like, I'm not upset about anything. I'm just still going to give you points that I think could be better because
yeah,
I'm a greedy fucker.
of course, but like everyone else is doing it, and at the end of the day, you're chilling there, and you're like, I mean, you're a guide writer for Wowhead, for example. Like, you're obviously going to come up with things to talk about and things to discuss. So I think that's reasonable. I think for me, like, my biggest problems with Feral aren't even on the talent trees. Like, for me, it's operational. It's how it actually is playing, and we can get more into that after. But yeah, we can talk a little bit then about like the class tree, because I know Snupy, you had some things to say. In particular, for me, the class tree like doesn't really like. I'm not really 100% sure what like.
It's just not improved.
Yeah, it's not improved. I mean, the thing is, I think it's maybe improved for the other 3 specs in some ways, but I don't feel like Feral's really got an increased deal. Like, you're never gonna not take Thrash, for example, because you're gonna come down here for this. So like this connection here between Rake and Rip for Feral, that doesn't really do anything, and then this connection from Maim to Tireless Pursuit. Like, I'm just struggling to think of when you would ever like take some of these things. However, the tree in general, it looks like we can get a bit more survivability or healing or utility. For example, we can get like Matted Fur and not like have to change anything from that. Sorry, I'll put Wild Charge in for all the Wild Chargers out there. But yes, Snupy, where are you at with things for the tree?
Yeah, so I guess my biggest disappointment, it didn't get worse than it was, but I feel like for Feral, again, like maybe for Resto, for Boomy or whatever, I guess I can see things maybe being a bit easier to path on. But for Feral, I feel like things were changed without changing anything, basically. Like, one example is they're going away from 3-point nodes mainly, except for teachings, right? So my one thing was like, yo, maybe Clone be 1 point cheaper to get now, because of Nurturing Instincts. But then you realize they moved Wild Growth up, so it's still basically 3 wasted points to get Clone. Which is, I guess, for PP, is like maybe the biggest complaint that Ferals have in the Druid tree, is that like all Mage specs have Sheep baseline. All Warlock specs have Fair baseline, right? And then for Druids, we need to waste, literally, for Feral Druid at least, you know, Nurturing Instincts gives you like the first part talent is magical damage increase, and I actually don't think that even scales with Lunar.
It doesn't.
Unless I'm wrong.
No.
Yeah, it doesn't. So I guess that's like you kind of force on a path of like only doing damage then, more than just like going for C, and it's not really like a viable option to even really go, except for like some scenarios. So I've given this feedback a lot too, but like Cyclone and even also Remove Corruption, I think at least one of those should be baseline, and the other one should be easier to pick up. Like, yeah, it feels bad. Like when the end result of a talent tree is you losing 3, even 4 buttons. If it's you used to have Bash and Roar, now only have 1. You used to have Clone, now you don't have Clone. You used to have Hibernate, now you don't have Hibernate. You used to have Remove Corruption, and then you can trade these for like more passive things, because they are better. Like the end result is that you just lose quite a few buttons that were fun to press, which I think it doesn't feel good.
Well, if you look at like the equivalent, right? Like you've got Maim, a single target stun that costs combo points on the left hand side of the tree, and on the right hand side you've got like Hibernate, and then you've got Tireless Pursuit, and then you've got Typhoon, and it's like obviously Typhoon is just like infinitely more valuable, and you've got like the extended range, and there's a lot of high value stuff on the right hand side of the tree, but on the left hand side of the tree there's not really that much that you want unless you're specifically a Feral Druid, right? And I do agree, like right now, for example, I go into Temple of Jade, whatever it is, Jade Serpent, and people say, oh, can you take Dispel, can you take Decurse? And I'm like, yeah, sure. I have to give up Typhoon, my movement speed ability, so Wild Charge or Tiger Dash, and Nature's Vigil. And it's like I'm giving up group utility in the form of Typhoon, my own movement speed, and group healing to get Decurse. And it's quite a lot of sacrifices, I think, for what you're actually getting in return. But yeah, anything else to add, or like I kind of cut you off a bit, but
no, you didn't. But yeah, I like one feedback. Like I've made a few videos like talking about this, and some people also comment, you know, like oh, you just want to have everything. You just want to get, you know, have everything and make no sacrifices. Like that's not what it's about either. It's about having a tree that feels good to path through, right? That feels like you actually have options. For like one other example is Vigil. Like Nature's Vigil is a very cool spell that I think has a very cool use as well. Especially maybe I don't know about in PvE.
In Mythic Plus, it's like really good. Yeah, really, really good.
It's good. So like the fact that you have to start off pathing like more than halfway up the tree to get down there just feels you don't really have a choice there, at least in PvP. So I think like in general, like maybe a bit more like sideways pathing. I don't know, like yeah, basically where you don't have to commit. I don't know how many points that would be, but like 6, 7, 8 points, whatever, to like get all the way down there, and that, because then you actually don't really have the choice to even get it. You can't really sacrifice something else to get it because you don't even have the option. Like, I can't be like sacrificing my kick and my main or something like this.
Can you imagine going into arena just like no kick and you're like, nah, dude, but I got vigil, so I got innovate.
Yeah,
if you
like,
need
"Where's my
that.
kick, man? I don't have it. Sorry, dude." But I do think.
Sorry, you got polyed.
Sorry, I don't play it in this build. Don't worry about it. Yeah, I'm aiming for 1600 at the end of the week. Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like there's like a lot of possibilities to improve the Druid tree. I think again, like Cyclone going baseline or just better pathing in general. I feel like the Druid tree, even though it did improve a bit, but it's more like a talent stick more than a talent tree. It feels more like a line you just go down. At least from a PvP perspective, it's you actually don't feel like you have that many choices.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. What about you, Guilty?
Broadly the same. I think a major problem so they added a load of new links, and they removed like point costs, and in a lot of ways, I think it's actually kind of absolutely nothing is improved. In some cases, it might even be worse. Like, so for instance, this section over to the right here, this Astral Influence section, on live, it's Sunfire and then Typhoon off to the edge. So like, in order to get to Mass Entanglement with Typhoon, it costs you 2 points. Because you 1 point in Sunfire, which gets you to Mass Entanglement or Ursul's Vortex, and then 1 point in Typhoon off to the side, which doesn't link anything. So they added a link from Typhoon down to Ursul's Vortex, which is great. That's fantastic. But they added another talent in the way there.
Yeah.
So it's still 2 points.
Exactly.
So now, like, maybe you get slightly better Typhoon, but this doesn't feel any better to path. And the same, like, there's like this kick, so you can go from Skull Dash to Primal Fury. There's no universe. I refuse. It is never going to happen where I do not click on Feline Swiftness. That is never happening. In any universe, in PvP, in Raid, in M+, I'm not going to click on it. I'm spending 2 points on that no matter what. This link doesn't do anything for me.
Exactly.
I'm never giving up on 15% move speed.
The only link I think I quite liked, I think it was the Matted Fur link, where you can go from like Skull Bash and you can like so I guess in theory you could skip Iron Fur and Thick Hide and then you could still get a bit of defensive like bulk.
No,
but
yeah, I like that link, but
I
some of
like
these
that
other ones
link,
don't make any sense.
But some of them, like this is what I'm saying. It feels like all of the, like the right hand side of the tree, some of the links kind of do make a bit of sense, right? And like some of the connections do make a bit of sense, but it feels like Tireless Pursuit, this Feline Swiftness, like you're always gonna take this, you're always gonna take Primal Fury. It seems more so like they've tried to make the Feral side of the tree and Guardian Druid side of the tree more accessible for Resto Druids to be able to DPS, or for Guardian Druids to, I don't even know. It seems like they're trying to make it better for those specs to get Feral stuff rather than Feral to like get that Feral stuff better. So yeah, some of the connections definitely don't really make
stuff like sense. Remove Corruption as well. I know Snoopy mentioned it and you mentioned it, but it's so frustrating that it's in the same place. Previously, in order to get to Cyclone, which Snoopy mentioned, you spent 3 points, you spent Rejuve, Swift Mend, Remove Corruption. Which I don't hate spending those points. Spending those points are fine. Like, I like having those 3 abilities in general. And then you spent 3 points in Nurturing Instincts, which sucked ass. Now, Nurturing Instincts is 2 points, but all of a sudden, you have to spend an extra point on Wild Growth, which I'm never going to click on in PvP. And whereas Remove Corruption is off to the side. It's not any more accessible. It's only inconvenient. Like, this has only been made more inconvenient. I'm spending the same number of points.
And it feels worse.
Now Remove Corruption is off to the side. Yeah. Because I'm putting this dead point to get Remove Corruption, which I really want.
Yeah. They're trying to, I think with having 4 specs that are all actually 4 different roles, right? Like, I consider, it's not like we're a rogue where we have like 3 melee DPS specs. It's like Boomkin and Feral I see as different roles because one is a range DPS and one is a melee DPS, and they play very different. So you have like 4 different roles that you're trying to accomplish with one Druid tree, and you're trying to get offensive, defensive, and utility for 4 different spec. It's just, there's too much to try and get into it, but I think it's gonna suck for Druids to kind of have to deal with this tree. But I think
the problem is
for the game,
they just need to do something different. They just need to do something different. Druid just needs to work slightly differently to others.
Yeah, I agree.
And other hybrids. Like, the problem is I spend so many points in this tree on stuff that I'm never going to press.
Yeah.
In what universe, in PvP, in Raid, in M+, in whatever content, am I pressing Starfire?
Yeah.
There isn't one. I think, like, what I want them to do, and I can't remember, I made this suggestion on some content piece. I can't remember whether it was on something with you, or it was on a cat chat, or it was on something else. But just bring back affinities. And just have the first point in each of these rows be affinity. And just save us like 3 points. And let us like spend it on stuff we care about.
So you would, in theory, like you'd put Rejuve, Swiftmend, and Wild Growth all packaged up into one point at the top of the tree. Same with these 3, say Moonkin form. Put it in one point.
Rip, Rape, Maim.
And then you'd have like Frenzied, Improved, and Verdant, like all there. Yeah.
And then every other point, like, you might still have to click on those, but at least you're not like spending 3 points to build some other specs kit you're never using.
Yeah.
And then you can like make talents that are like this Forest Walk talent they added. Casting Rejuve, regrowth, increase your movement speed and healing received by 5% for 3 seconds. Cool talent.
Yeah.
I'd love to talent it. I'm never going to. I'd love to though.
I was looking at my like current talent build of how I do the class tree, and the only like I'd have to drop 1 in Feline Swiftness in order to get Forest Walk, and then it's like, well, I'd rather just have the permanent, like, what is it, 8%? Yeah, I'd rather just have the permanent 7%. I'm not going to drop that for that, but it's kind of cool. I mean, you do get the healing received, but yeah, I know what you mean. There's definitely some cool stuff, some cool options. Okay. Cool. Anything else you guys wanted to add on the tree? Because I wanted to talk. I know that we're kind of getting close to the end. Probably got another like 10 or so-ish minutes, 15-ish. But do you guys have any thoughts then in terms of the overall strength? Like, a big question for a lot of people. These are the big ones. Is it a nerf or is it a buff? And then, is Bleed Feral dead? Those are the questions that I get asked the most. It seems to be that that's what's on everyone's mind. So
if you make me answer that question, I know your home address.
Yeah, I'm gonna make you answer that question. I mean, I know you've got some thoughts on it, Guilty, in terms of like people maybe kind of blowing the Bleed Feral out of proportion. It's not actually gonna be as bad as people are thinking. What's the nicest way you can present that?
Snupy can answer the question about PvP first.
Okay,
yeah,
sure.
Okay. So I guess, you know, you got to break it down, like what is actually being changed. So they were going to nerf Rake, but they are not doing that. It's still going to be 30% like on infected wounds. Rip is getting nerfed by 5% on what's called the Rip talents.
For bleeding.
Yes, that one. So, I mean, like, as far as I'm aware, like the only nerf to bleeds is that, the 5% on Rip. But then we'll get our 2 set or 4 set. I'm still only 1 set. So I think like yeah.
Circle's also getting dropped from 25% into 20% less time, right?
Oh, on Circle.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Honestly, like, dude, in PvP, I think in the cleave build, we play Rip and Tear and Circle. And I think that actually might just give you a bit more time to like, because bleeds sometimes fall off, you know, you might get seed or something. So I think it's like not necessarily strictly bad thing. Of course, like if you're talking about like strict like uptime, if you have full uptime, it's gonna be like a slight damage decrease. But I don't think that like that's a big deal. And I think overall we're probably looking maybe even slightly better than we are right now. Of course, the meta might change like in the game in general, and how a spec is performing in PvP. That doesn't only matter on how good that spec is. It depends on how it's fitting into a larger meta. But on its own, I mean, it's looking good. Rip and Tear getting buffed from 12 to 15%. We also have Tear Open Wounds it's gonna do 60% of the consume 70% of the rip damage, up from 60. It's like overall there are, I'd say, more positives than negatives, and I think.
So then Feral needs to get nerfed then, yeah? If it's looking
No,
good, it's got to get
no.
nerfed, right?
Actually,
That's what
it's
you're
looking
saying.
really bad. Looking really bad.
Guys,
with lots of-
unsubscribe from Snoopy on YouTube
No
right now.
burst.
He just said that Feral needs to get nerfed. He said it's looking too
What?
strong. Nice, I just got Snoopy cancelled. That's why I brought you here today.
Damn, you got me, dude. You got me.
we got him, boys. Guilty, what about you, man? How you feel in terms of stuff? Yeah, what were you saying?
So, if people know my feelings on the bleed Feral is dead thing, it's fucking not. They don't want to change that. I feel I probably have a bit more insight into their wider goal with these changes, because I know what they are, and there is nothing to do with bleed. Well, I guess it actually is somewhat to do with bleeds. The issues they had were they wanted to, or well, the overarching goals they had were they wanted to reduce. They wanted to make Feral's AOE slightly less uncapped, and that's it. They wanted to make Feral's AoE slightly less uncapped. They wanted to stop taking terror open wounds on single target, and they wanted to kill the possibility of us ever having a build where we only press Primal Wrath on single targets. That's what they wanted.
Because those were big issues. Like those were issues. If you go look at Warcraft logs right now in Raid, for example, everyone's doing this thing where you take Tear Open Wound instead of Taste for Blood because it's just cheaper to get down the tree. So these were issues that you're talking about, yeah?
I agree wholeheartedly with all of their goals. Well, I maybe don't agree with capping AoE in general as a philosophy, but if the game is going to exist that way, then I'm fine with that. I think the changes are a buff in single target. Let me get my brain working correctly here. They're absolutely a buff in single target, about 6%. I think in general in AoE, it's probably a net neutral. So it's probably a small nerf in Algathar Academy.
What?
Oh no, my 150k whatever.
My 150k overall is ruined. Oh.
Yeah, it's probably a small nerf in Algathar Academy. So it's like a small nerf to massive AoE. It's a reasonably big nerf to having just a little bit of AoE. So like the builds we saw on some fights where you just take Primal Wrath and you're already taking Tear Open Wounds, so it costs you like 1 point in tireless energy for some AoE. It's a small nerf to that. It's a moderate single target buff to builds which have a lot of AoE. And it's a moderate single target nerf to builds which have... No, it's a moderate single target buff to builds that are like a little bit AoE. So...
Yeah, I think
like,
it's...
So medium AoE. So small AoE, nerf single target. Medium AoE, buff single target. High AoE, buff single target. General unchanged nerf in AoE is the breakdown.
Yeah.
I've written that somewhere in Dreamgrove. I'm sure someone can find it where I've written it in a more sane manner.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate that. I know it's a lot to kind of keep up in your head and everything and mess around with all the numbers going on. But yeah, I think generally speaking, it's like you say, it's not that it's like a nerf, it's just that it's reshuffling, recalibrating exactly where some of our damage is coming from. So instead of it being like, they're just like re-tipping the scales a little bit. But I think a lot of people get this blown out of proportion of like, oh my god, we're going to lose all of our bleed damage because of these nerfs. But like, for example, in Mythic Plus, like 60 to 65% of my damage is bleeds. And the other percent, the other like 40%, is also not just like direct damage, things like bite and shred, but trinket procs, flasks, procs from things like all that kind of stuff, melee attacks, right? It's like all that kind of stuff. So bleeds are a heavy amount of our damage right now, and I think that it's okay to bring that back a couple of percent and then buff the other things a couple of percent, and it all roughly evens out. And I think you're absolutely right, Snoopy, and that's made me think even just now, this change to Circle, I think is actually going to make it more comfortable to play Feral, for example, in Mythic Plus, where your bleeds being up that little bit longer gives you just that extra little bit of time before you need to reapply your Primal Wrath, because sometimes you just dip into that like 3-second mark on your tear or that 2-second mark, and then you end up not getting as much value on your tear open wound, whereas like if they last that little bit longer, you have that bit more time in order to do that. So we might actually see that it's, and then you get more Apex procs because your bleeds are up more, like longer and stuff like that. So, well, yeah, I mean, you don't get more, but like it just kind of, you have more time to use things and generate your combo points and everything like that. So, and get your blood talent and stuff. So I think that it could actually work out being okay. And yeah, getting Taste of Blood, like for me, for example, in Mythic Plus, the only thing that's going to change for me is like I just don't take Tireless Energy, and then I now get Taste for Blood. So I've traded off Tireless Energy, which I didn't really fully need, but now I'm just gonna get, I mean, I don't know how good Convoke is gonna be, by the way. That's maybe something that we should talk about in like various content. But now I'm just getting,
much the same as it is now.
Yeah, is it just gonna be the same? I mean,
Yep.
I'm basically getting okay, I probably messed up somewhere with this allocation of things, but I'm basically just gonna get Taste of Blood for free and not really have to... Oh, I think I have to lose MOC in order to get another point in Carnivorous, but that's a discussion point for, like, whatever. But I can get Taste for Blood just kind of free, and then I get a bit more single target, and I'm not actually really lost much from my build, so I'm generally, like, really happy with what's going on with this tree. And yeah, anything else you guys
the second life is whatever. It's, like, less than a second increase to like, bleed duration. It's not really going to change your playstyle. The playstyle remains the same. Damage is slightly shifted. It's just good changes.
Yeah.
Oh, one thing I do want to talk about, actually, if we're talking about other stuff now. Fucking Feral Artifact, man. Can I have an enchant on both artifact weapons instead of just one?
Oh, dude. I saw a tweet about that.
It's so cringe. I'd love to use enchant illusions on my artifact, but it looks so bad when you've only got one enchanted.
It was the same thing on the beta as well earlier.
Yeah, when it was bugged. But hopefully, like,
but
now it's an official thing.
But it's a bug, though. I mean, I'm sure they know about it. So basically, like, if anyone's listening, it's that, you know, illusions are coming to artifact weapons. And for Ferals, there's 2 daggers. But the illusion is only working on the main hand dagger. So, like, you only have the enchant effect on one. Which has been a thing since on the beta, it was also a thing. So hopefully that gets addressed. Because it's really cool when you can have 2 illusion daggers as a Feral. But... it's only a 1, which makes it looks a bit wonky. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
a bit wonky.
It just looks a bit goofy, a bit silly. Like ideally you could enchant both of them with like a different one. That would be sick. But I'd take the same one being on both. Just I want illusions on both. That's it.
All right, so that's your biggest thing. All right, okay, so what they're going to do now is they're going to nerf it, and they're going to make it so the daggers don't get any glow at all. You don't get any illusion. Yeah, I mean, a few things I wanted to talk about. Do you guys have anything else that you personally wanted to talk about? Because there's like one last little section I want to jump into if we can.
Go ahead, hit me.
Yeah, you good? Yeah. All right, well, there's a few, like, the biggest thing for me now, I think the trees are fine. Like, I can live with the class tree. I'm happy with the spec tree. I'm happy with the number tuning on things. I think overall we should be a little bit kind of stronger, at least in the content that I play, so I should be happy. But a few things right now. So when you start a Mythic Plus dungeon and you incarn before the key goes in, you lose your incarn after the key starts. However, Boomkin and Guardian Druid do not lose their incarn. So that's one thing where, like, Feral's just lacking there. We just get the short straw. Also, not being able to cast Innovate in cat form, it's really stressful. I'm sure, I mean, I don't know if you even Innovate in PvP, but I know in Raid, you're trying to do stuff, and your healer calls for an Innovate, and you're right about to generate your Blood Talons, and everything in your rotation is lining up, and then you gotta jump out, and you gotta Innovate, and you lose, it all falls down, right? Same within Mythic Plus, and of course, not being able to rebirth from cat form. Like, these little issues for me are my biggest pet peeve right now with Feral. They're the biggest issue for me. In-cap Roar putting us in bear form, not cat form. It should be like Stampeding Roar, where if you're like a Boomkin or a Resto, it puts you in bear form. But if you're a Feral, it keeps you in cat form. If you do Stampeding Roar, it should be the same for in-cap. It's a bit annoying. Yeah, that one kind of makes sense, right? Like
above roars as well, so.
They're both roars. You should be able to roar with both, right? So,
Yeah.
I think cats in the wild, actually, they don't roar. I think they still kind of do some kind of meow, but, you know, it's fine. Those are my issues. I don't know what you guys feel about that. Are you actually okay with it? Are you not that bothered? Are you super into it as well, like me?
I'm not that bothered by Raw. I definitely think it should probably be changed for consistency's sake. Innovate is really annoying. I really hope they change. Also Battle Res in cat form as well. That one's really annoying because we have a cast time and we've got like 2 GCTs on shift, 1 GCT on shifting. It's disproportionate. Just let me innovate in cat form. Let me battle res in cat form. Everyone else can do it. Why can't I?
Would you be okay with like an associated cost if it costs, say, like 20 energy, 30 energy, something like that, but it was instant? Or if you could use like predatory swiftness to proc it, or it was hard cast but in cat form, like how would you envision it, Guilty?
I would just have it hard cast in cat form. I'd
Cool.
be fine with it proccing predatory swiftness. It having an energy cost would be somewhat annoying, but I'd be okay with that. But yeah, I think it should just be.
Sure. Yeah. And Snupy, what about you, my man?
Like I'm not too like so in PP we don't really play innervate. We don't really I don't play roar. But one thing I just want to say about that though is that roar bash choice node actually feels fairly bad in my opinion. I think like Heart of the Wild bash is like a pretty good choice and it used to be a choice on the it's a three talents you could pick between.
Yeah.
So I mean just like this might be more personal thing, but I think the dynamic between roar and bash, which we had in Shadowlands, felt really good, and losing it actually feels very bad in my opinion. And I think roar should be moved somewhere up with like the guardian stuff. It's like a bear form thing, maybe a bit further up.
What if you
maybe
put it like here or something, or you put raw like
Wait,
there or
I
something?
can't see your screen. It's
Can
like
you
it's
not?
loading for me.
Wait,
No,
really?
no.
Oh.
Yeah, but it's fine.
Oh, okay.
Where do you mean?
Okay, so you could maybe put it, I don't know, you could put it like maybe where matted fur was, or like tireless pursuit,
Yeah.
and you just like get rid of tireless pursuit and just put
You put iron fur like over frenzied regen and then put like roar down there or something.
Oh,
or,
yeah. That'd be really good. You put iron
Yeah.
fur there after frenzied regen, and then you can put incap after improved swipe. That could work, maybe.
I think I think like small things like these at least should be considered. Maybe it's not really a small thing, but yeah, like that dynamic at least in PP feels really good to have, and losing it felt bad. So, but yeah, when it comes to like it putting in bear form, I think optimally should be useful in cat form. It's a roar like Stampede. It should be the same kind of mechanic behind that. For combo rest and stuff, like of course you can't use that in arena, so I've not really been affected with that myself. But it does sound like just something that should be done. It's like they can do these things. So just like they're small things, but they're gonna make the spec feel more well-rounded overall, which I think they should do. It's like it's like freebies. They just gotta do it. It's like low-hanging fruit that I think will overall make the spec feel quite a bit better.
Yeah, agreed.
Smoother.
Yeah, I think it's things where if they don't make these changes, I think it's fine. But innovate, incap raw, rebirth in cat form, like these things, it just ruins your flow. You want to be encouraged to help your team in whatever content you're doing, and it really disrupts your flow, especially when I do feel like Feral is on that harder area of gameplay, especially if you're playing with, say, like Swarm and Blood Talons and stuff like that, and then you're also managing your combo points, your energy, and all that stuff, and your bleed up times and everything, and you got circle ticking them quicker as time's going by, and have all these things to worry about, and then you have to spend globals unnecessarily on shifting forms and hard casting and stuff like that. It just really ruins your flow, and I think that in an MMO, in combat, like WoW is one of the most fluid like combat games that you can play, really. I think in this kind of genre, I think it's very, very fluid, and people love the combat in WoW. It just feels really weird that Feral just has this really disruptive play, because I innovate in Boomkin, and it feels absolutely fine. Like, I think it's even off GCD as well for Boomkin. Like, that's how nice it feels to play as Boomkin. Like, they call Innovate, just boop, it's done. And Feral is just like, it's that much bit more kind of disruptive, but you want that smooth gameplay. Anything else that you guys wanted to comment about? We maybe have a couple more minutes if you guys have anything really glaring. Go on, Snupy.
I can say, kind of same with Innovate, like Heart of the Wild also would make sense of global, I think. Someone actually said this in my chat too. Of course, like now it's like more like nitpicking stuff towards the end here, but yeah, like Heart should be off GCD, I think. Like it should. It just feels bad when you're like dying, and like you gotta use a buff that doesn't do anything on its own, but it's gonna buff you, or it's gonna increase the healing for heals, but it doesn't heal it. So like you might use a global, and then it's just like, yeah. So I think Heart as Innovate probably in that way should kind of be off GCD. And I think that's all.
I don't disagree.
Yeah, fair enough. Anything else from you, Guilty, that you want us to talk about?
No, I think we've covered pretty much everything.
Cool. Perfect. All right, well, I think that's going to wrap it up. That's where we're going to leave it there. An hour and 15 minutes or so of Feral content for you guys. I hope that it was nice to listen to. We didn't have the Q&A this time around, but hopefully next time we can get it nice and live for you. Anything to sign off with, guys? I'll come to you first, Snoopy. I know we've been able to advertise a little YouTuber right there for you, but anything else that you want to kind of shout out? Anything that you're working on at the moment or got upcoming?
I'm gonna make a new guide for 10.0.5 for any PvP Feral. So I mean that should be out on my YouTube, Snoopy on YouTube. So yeah, that's the only thing. Like, if anyone wants to get some info on how to play Feral in the coming patch, you can check that out for Shuffle, basically.
Perfect. Awesome. Make sure you go follow chat. I'll have a link in the description for Snoopy here. And Guilty, anything from you, sir?
Nothing much. Guide will be updated for 10.05. I think I'll be doing that for Sunday. So hopefully I should answer all your questions there about stuff.
Cool. And you write for Wowhead. Yep. Is that where people can find new content?
Yep. Wowhead. Click around on the various options until you find an option that says Feral Druid. I can't remember where it is. I just read the guides.
Perfect. All right. Well, that'll do it. Everyone watching this now, thank you so much. I hope you appreciated it, and leave your comments down below on kind of how you're feeling about Feral as well. We want to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again.